Years ago, a small-town Welsh girl imagined a career in fashion. She could never have predicted how it would lead to international adventures in interior design and building her dream life in the wine country of Southern Africa.
Hi, my name is Wendy Smith, and I'd like to welcome you to Monument House in Franschhoek. I grew up in a very small farming village in Wales, so yes, I am from the UK. Very early on in my teens, I realised that I didn't want to live in a village. I was very excited to go into the metropolis and to, live a more exciting life. So I moved to London, which is where I met Nishan, who's my husband. During our time in London, we had the opportunity to move to Singapore and ended up staying for 22 years. After moving to Singapore, I became more interested in architecture, buildings and interiors. So I started building houses. So my job currently is design and build. I build houses and I do the interiors.
From Wendy's first makeover of a Victorian house done on a tiny budget almost 3 decades ago, she's become a self-taught master of her art.
Monument House is a culmination of a love affair that started back in 2003. My husband and I came over to attend a wedding with friends. We were so struck by Franschhoek, we just started to try and form a plan to eventually end up here. And here we are. So the property, the land itself, is just over 4 acres. It used to be a plum orchard when we bought it, and that was back in 2018. We then traveled back to Singapore, where I spent the next 15 months planning it. It's comprised of 2 residential houses and then 5 unique offerings around which make up a guest house.
Having cut her teeth on rebuilding single-story houses, Mrs. Smith began to buy empty plots to build on, so she could give her imagination free rein.
So we have a 3-story Cape Dutch house, very much in keeping with the Cape Dutch style that is the vernacular here in Franschhoek. 2 2-bedroom cottages and 2 luxury suites. This beautiful Victorian village of Franschhoek is full of these Cape Dutch houses, and we very much wanted to pay an homage to that. So these wonderful decorative gables and the high-pitched roofs that you see are very indicative of the local style. However, I did play with the proportion. I played with the style. I'm not a big fan of Victorian houses. They tend to be narrow and low and dark, and I really wanted something that was a little broader, a little more lofty and optimistic. When you initially see Monument House, it does read as a Cape Dutch building. No particular age maybe, but it definitely reads as an older dwelling, when really it's not, because we only finished the build in 2021.
This Art Deco showpiece takes its name from the Welsh word hiraeth, expressing a deep longing for home.
Hiraeth Cottage, it still takes my breath away when I come in. I think it's to do with the double aspect windows, left and right. You're just ensnared, I think, by the fantastic landscape outside. And the style of the sitting room has an Art Deco flair. It is a favorite style of mine, but we also selected it because we're situated directly behind the monument of Franschhoek. It has very heavy Art Deco elements also, with a strong globe and the very tall arches. So I think it was important to try and reflect that within the interiors that we designed. This wallpaper, for instance, with its curvy linear design that wraps around the room and the stylized crane, is very typical of the motifs and the elements that you find in Art Deco. But we've paired it with quite clean, modern furniture. The sofas and the chaises, they're comfortable, they're overstuffed, the fabric is tactile. We really aim to have the feel of this room as a cozy, comforting room that you can relax on, as opposed to an intimidating feel. I think it's lovely if clients walk in and there's some oohs and ahs, but I don't want them to be afraid to curl up on the sofa, light the fire and enjoy. Some of the issues I had to overcome with these spaces is the sheer scale of them. The walls are high, the lofty ceilings, it's almost 7 meters standing inside this room. So we had to custom make everything so that the proportion worked.
These gold, copper and silver pendants are a consistent theme through every room in the cottage.
The kitchen is a strong room. What I really like about it, it's clean and it's strong and it's modern. We made sure that it worked with the rest of the design. We pulled in the teal color from our tulip dining table and incorporated that into all of the carpentry. And the burnished copper from the chairs are reflected in the shelving above the worktop. The decorative elements help to lighten the heaviness of the kitchen. I have some very sentimental paintings here that my husband and I commissioned in London. As new homeowners at the time, we couldn't really afford art, so we commissioned these pieces from university students that had opened a stall in the market. You asked them for the piece of art that you wanted and they produced it perfectly. We've had these pieces for almost 30 years and they've traveled around the world with me, and now here they are hanging on the wall in the kitchen in Franschhoek.
Owning her signature style as a maximalist, Wendy is unafraid to mix patterns and colour on a grand scale.
So this is one of 2 bedrooms in Hiraeth Cottage. It's very much an art-based room. I have to reference the wallpaper because I just think it's one of the key design elements in this room. I find the colours are deep and soothing, and I think that's obviously quite key for a bedroom. You can quite happily come in here and relax. This item behind me would also help. It's one of my favourites. I've had this bed for about 30 years. My husband and I bought it when we were in Italy. For this room, what we did was paint it in this very lovely, glossy, pale grey paint, and it took on a completely new feel. So I was very fortunate in Asia that I had access to a very talented master carver. We designed this piece with scale in mind. This is a very big room. And he was able to take our sketches and to produce this incredible piece. It's made out of a very hard ironwood. It's quite hard to carve. We have these beautiful winged creatures as the base, holding up this fantastic marble top. And then this elevated mirror all the way to the height of the dressing table. And obviously casts a great reflection in the room. Function and form. What could be better? One of the delights for me is this bank of wardrobe doors. On first look, it appears to be all cabinetry, but beyond the central doors leads to your bathroom. And here it is. The first thing that grabs you when you enter this bathroom is the scale and the volume. The ceilings are high, the walls are large. So in choosing the finishes, especially things like the wall tiles, we had to go with a scale. Everything was increased. You can't use a standard small scale tile. The mirror also was scaled up. It's enormous and it's a large size, but somehow it works in the space.
Even when it's winter in the valley, in this suite, it's permanent high summer thanks to this bold use of oversized florals.
So this is bedroom 2 in Hiraeth. Again, you can see another lovely cozy room and yet another mural. The focus goes directly to the wall as you walk in. So there's still a calmness in this room. Obviously, you can still sleep here quite happily, but I think the flowers give you a little joy. So in order to strengthen the look of this mural in the bedroom, we actually repeated it again inside the ensuite so that your view from whether you're at the bed or at the front door, the wallpaper is always front and center. I think another interesting piece in this room is this armoire. It's from an original period piece and my husband and I found it in a flea market in Paris. We bought it, flat packed it and shipped it immediately to Bali so that my master craftsman could use it as the inspiration for this gorgeous wardrobe here.
Even if Wendy isn't a landscaper nor familiar with our indigenous plants, her vision and can-do spirit makes for spectacular surrounds.
I wanted a very formal garden. It's a little bit of a nod to Versailles. Obviously not at the same scale, but I did like the formality because the whole architecture and the layout of this site is symmetrical. So it seems very sensible to have that sort of formalized garden inside. It just made sense. And when you walk around the front and back meadow, that's more indigenous, more meadow-like, slightly wilder and less formed. But I think the flow from one to the other works really well. And then I guess the jewel in the crown is this glorious pool that you see here, which I just think is the first thing that captures you when you walk through the arch. The pool's origins come from Morocco. I saw a hotel in Morocco. It had the most incredible tiled pool, and the green and white just attracted me. The pool consists of green and white mosaic tiles that are laid in a checkerboard fashion, and then a wildly striped walk around outside. So two geometrics together don't normally work, but I think with this pool design, it becomes more eye-catching.
From a young girl growing up in the valleys of Wales to a design entrepreneur living in the winelands of Africa, Wendy Smith has taken her childhood imaginings and turned them into a storied life.